Happy Friday and welcome back to the Paladins Premier League. My name's Tom Badiner, otherwise known as F. Dot. Going to be joining you, and also here is pretty hair Nick Keogh. How you doing, bud?
Good, man. Welcome back. Glad to have you again.
Yeah, I was glad to be rolling here on the Pally Squad side of things, and we've got 3 matches. You're going to bring somebody new. We're going to bring some bonus Paladins as well. Spacestation on a tear since their 4th week introduction here. Winning record for these guys after yesterday.
Yeah, and they have the chance to move to 3rd place today. It would require that they do defeat Virtus Pro later on, but this is a big, big week for them. Catch-up games, like if you're just now kind of joining and getting in the swing and weren't watching the first couple weeks of the PPL, SSG, due to some visa stuff, they didn't get here until week 4, so that's why they're playing so many games this week, just in order to catch up and stay with the pack.
Pittsburgh Knights will be their first team. You heard Nick mention they'll play Virtus Pro a little bit later, so some different quality level of opponents here coming out for Spacestation Gaming. But this is what the league looks like right now. Ninjas in pajamas looking down at everybody from Tenpenny Tower, NV, and Nadas Vincier. That's NV and NV in 2 and 3 for what it's worth. Renegades still having some trouble on the bottom side of things. And like I said, number 5, Spacestation. That is the team to watch today, whether it's because you're excited for them, whether it's because you saw them yesterday, or whether you just want to see the standings change. They're the team to watch right now.
And I wouldn't get it mistaken. Yes, they are in 5th place, looking like middle of the pack right now, but largely in part that's because of the way the games are played, because they ebb and flow. Some teams have played more games than others, and especially Space Station Game. They have a lot of games to catch up on, so that's why it doesn't look like they have as many wins as some other teams. That's just because they have more games to play.
Those wins, I think, will come, though, frankly, just watching the way that they were playing yesterday. We saw them play against some real strong teams, and even in their losses, they still wind up kind of grabbing some ground. And a lot of that has to do with Ares right here, one of the strong DPS players here for Space Station. There's a lot of good things that happen on this team. The front line is what I look at, and when everything's safe and sound, this is one of the guys that really pops off and puts up the numbers.
We got to see a couple of awesome things from him yesterday, pretty much to what you just said. When the front lines were really doing their job well, he just got to sit back, pull the trigger. He's shooting at people that aren't even really looking at him because his front line is that good. But he definitely has that playmaking potential. And he's really kind of owned this role, specifically around Tyra. And he's actually made the character look so good that I'm almost changing my opinion of her. He's really, really kind of owned, like, I can kind of be that support style of DPS and just, mark people up, call them out, hype up my team, do that type of stuff. And it has been working really well for SSG.
Richau, and a very important member of the squad as well. Like we said, Ares is only really allowed to have those sort of performances because of what this guy and some of his teammates open up on the battlefield.
Richau's been super sleeper for me this season, and the reason I say that is because adding Sadak, sort of like he was the coach, and then they needed him to fill in and play, and he ended up he's a big name player, came from one of the more successful Latin American teams. He kind of stole the spotlight on the front line. He's the off tank. He gets a lot of the big power picks, stuff like that. But just game after game after game, you're seeing a lot of times bigger damage numbers, better slash lines coming out of Richau when he gets his Barrack, when he gets his Inara, and you're like, wow, I mean, this guy's really something special as well. And it really is that total package when you look at SSG.
And that's the key there. I think that if I kind of want my point tank to be sleepy. If there's a lot of highlight plays from your point tank, that means, well, players are getting too close to the point. Players are there, they're involved. If everything goes Space Station Gaming's way, Barrack sits under the squad and sleepy, just kind of going to work. I'm a role player. That's the ideal situation for a job.
Yeah,
so
I think that's a good point.
Yeah, so I mean, it's working out here for the team, and I think that's the biggest deal here when we look at Space Station Gaming is that it's the unit. We highlighted some of the DPS, but it's only because of what Sadok's been able to do. We highlight the point tank, and it's only because of what the support's been able to do. This is a whole big team, and I think the coach comes into that as well. Coach Kresnik really bringing out some of the draft strategy here for these guys.
Absolutely. Kresnik is a big part of this team and has one of the better minds, even though he's played before, hasn't really kind of gotten to the top level at that, as the player, but at the end of the day, he has one of the better minds to think and draft and construct.
We're going to pick that brain right about now. Kresnik on call right before the match.
Appreciate it, fellas, down here in the booth with none other than Kresnik, of course. And I'm curious, now that you've gotten 2 of the games under the belt, what is it like having 2 games in the same day? Was having one earlier truly beneficial for the second one?
It's hard to, it gave us a lot of extra practice in this meta that we wanted, you know, some different maps, and also got to have some time in between to go, all right, we prep for this team, now we can prep for this team, you know, and it's more work when you're in the studio, right? You're more focused like that instead of when you're at home. So I think it was decent, but I'm glad the second set was faster. I'll tell you that much for sure.
Well, you got a 7-game set number 1, and then a much quicker set number 2 of the day. 2 more today, of course. First one, of course, being up against the Knights on the opposite side. They had a big win yesterday. What's your take on where they're at as a team?
I mean, every team throughout the season has been improving a lot. Knights, I think they got a little bit of boost in the unbanned plus Steelforge meta. I mean, historically, they like Grover, and I mean, they played him 3 times yesterday. He's back now. But Knights, they can pull out anything. I mean, they've picked, I think, every map in the entire game at least once. So I think they are a team we definitely shouldn't underestimate.
Sure. Well, I know Sadoc's going to hate it, but thoughts on Terminus? Why'd he come out?
I take partial blame. Well, I take like 75% blame because I said, Sadoc, try Terminus. And he was like, he's back. Terminus is back. And he was not back. He was not back. There's a time and a place. It was just not that time or that place.
Well, you won both sets regardless. Best of luck to you guys today. Thanks for talking with us. Send it back to the desk.
Kresnik shedding some light on what went on yesterday. We spoke to the guys after the match, too, and like, so, Sadoc, talk to us about Terminus. And he went, no, thank you.
I'm trolling. I'm trolling.
Let's not talk about it. The Terminus, I'm a big fan. You're a big fan. Unfortunately, winners don't seem to be big fans of Terminus at the moment. Across the way, Pittsburgh Knights, much more traditional stuff out of them yesterday. The Throner coming through on the point stuff really, really strongly. But Ricotta, I think, really standout player from what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, he's got to be a big role player for them. And he talked a lot, and I think put it pretty eloquently in his post-game interview that as kind of the captain and then a real in-game leader for this squad, he just had to kind of change his mentality and the way he looks at, you know, what is exactly going wrong. And I actually like the way he said it because, you know, it's so easy to say, oh, played good, played bad, but why? And really looking at a team fight and saying, well, why can Na'Vi have these characters go in and just win and just come out on top and just stay alive and just, you know, eke out that victory? And I think that is where a lot of the finer details are lost in Paladins, but those finer details are really what can separate you and make you a championship squad.
It's the mentality, right? It's the mindset. There's a lot in common with these players as far as how well they can track their shots, aim, push their buttons. This is the Paladins Premier League, the premier talent. What separates you from the top from the bottom, maybe the top from the tippy top is better said, is the approach to the game and how you kind of react to, like you said, those bad moments, those losses. How do you think about the game is very, very important. And all that big brains leaves some big brawn to be seen as well. 6'8" point tank dethroner, really making a scene here, man.
He's the perfect guy to play the point tank.
He totally is.
The absolute biggest man in the entirety of the Paladin scene. And he's definitely made some waves here on his point tanks. Forced to play Fernando sometimes and not looking as great, so I think he can be a weak link if attacked in the draft phase. But honestly, I think Ash has been his best character. I think he has at least 2 out of 3 of his top 3 highlights are on this character, one of which I believe was against Na'Vi. He has had some incredible moments for sure with this character. And if the Knights can get him on it more often, I think that's a boon. But more often than not, he does have to play those Barracks and those Inaras.
Even on the Barrack, I really enjoy him. And I think the key there is that he's a very active point tank. Usually you see the off tanks, the aggressive tanks be the more active players here. But he likes the Ash, he likes the Barrack, and like we said, the Inara, the Fernando is the one that he kind of falls down a little bit on. So if you're looking for Dethroner to make the plays, look for Dethroner to be really, really active, really aggressive, and just really rambunctious. That's what he brings to the table. And if he's going to bring the rambunctiousness, somebody's got to calm everybody down. Is that Cuss Cutie? Let's take a look.
Everybody still takes losses as like a learning experience. I've already had enough learning experience with losses, so I'm ready to win. So I think when we get into game with teams that we're not supposed to beat, there is no nerves. Everything's sort of just like, it's like practice. You know, you play how you practice. But when we get against teams that we should beat or could beat, it's like an uphill battle. I don't know what it is, honestly. Like when we get in a game with Kanga or with like a VP or like Renegades, the game just seems harder. So My eyes are still on this season. We're not completely out of MSI yet. If we can beat Renegades, which we should, and steal a game off of SSG or Envy, and Kanga loses, then we could get into some kind of situation where we qualify still. So that's where my eyes are still set. That's where the team's eyes are still set. Season's not over for us, so we still have work to do. This is our second time going against them. SSG is aggressive. They're an extremely aggressive team. Their tempo is really dictated by Sadak and by FRZ God. So if they're having a great game, you're in for a tough set. And if they're struggling a little bit, their team's just as weak as any team could be. So it really just depends on what team they have that day, honestly. Their weak points are definitely in like the DD and the main tank role, and not because of the players, because Ares is great, Rachao is great. I think it has to do with the meta, and it has to do with what characters are good in the meta right now. And right now, every single game is dictated by the off tank and by the blaster. And I would say, arguably, that they've got one of, if not the best off tank blaster combos in the PPL right now. So winning that matchup's going to be tough, but if we can, squeak by and match that, and use our ability to outperform them in the DD role and the main tank role, then we could, maybe steal some wins that we shouldn't have stole. So, well, it's really hard to be able to say, okay, we're gonna get G-Bunny this character and deny Sadak this character, because all the off tanks are really good right now. Obviously, we want to see G-Bunny on like an Atlas or an Ashe, or somebody that can really take control of the game and dictate engages and disengages as well as those two characters can. I think player-wise, I think we can pick out Madao because of how aggressive the team does play. When a team is playing aggressive, usually the sport gets left behind or like is forced to just chase and keep up with their aggressive team. So if we can like stymie that aggression a little bit and find ways to get behind and focus down Madao a little bit, then I think we could definitely win some team fights. Well, I can't say we're going to lose, right? Or I would have no confidence in my own team. If we are to win, it's going to be a close set. Definitely. It'll definitely go 6 or 7 games if we are to win.
Cuss bringing some of the insight behind what makes Pittsburgh Knights tick. Eyes on the prize for this guy. And what we talked about yesterday, the fact that Cuss, one of the mainstays of the Paladin scene, been around here since pretty much day one.
Yep.
Obviously switching it up from his old DPS role into a more support position, but I like his kind of view on the scene in general. He kind of gets it. He's looking at the big picture here. And as we take a look at this map more specifically and zoom in, I think he really nailed it. This Spacestation gaming team relies a lot on Sadak and FRZ God, and a lot of times you'll see drafts built around that. Frog Isle is where we start off today.
You're absolutely right. I think every time we saw Sadak on a wheel or hands off the wheel type of off tank, they were losing. They were just not looking like themselves. Every time he's on that Ashe, on that Con, getting in people's faces, making Ares' life a lot easier as well, that's when SSG really looked like that impenetrable unit. Frog Isle is going to revolve heavily around Eevee. We saw it yesterday with Payan. Freeze God has the potential to carry the game on that character. That's really where my eyes are at. She might even end up banned.
Right away, we're going to see a Strix ban. And this puts the ball in Knights' courts because Mako and Torvald kind of have to be banned in Space Station here playing with fire. And I love the Knights' adaptation here, right? The Mako will be up if SSG don't ban it, but they must have really heard what you were saying. Because Sadak, you mentioned Ashe as well. Sadak's Con is what stood out to me yesterday. And for Space Station Gaming, they're a team that really needs that recency bias, that momentum. And that Con was hot in the hand for the Argentinian.
There is a lot of dynamics happening right now. There's only 2 snipers in the game of Paladins. They are both very good on Frog Isle. One of them is banned, so where will the last one end up? Eevee is still a natural predator, also not banned out, swirling around the draft pool. Makoa, Atlas, very, very high priority front lines. Which one's taking a seat? The answer is neither. Both snipers taken from the pool from SSG.
And I like this for Space Station Gaming because when you look at what FRZ God and the DPS for SSG want to do, they don't have a standout sniper like some of the other squads. FRZ God would much rather be on that Eevee and allow his team to be a little bit more rambunctious. That does mean that you're giving Knights Makoa, but if that means FreezeGod can get his EV and you can give Sadak something like an Atlas, this is kind of what SSG are looking for.
I agree 100% with you. I think this is not very common, but you really hit the nail on the head in terms of that. They can snipe, but they don't. Even yesterday you saw, I was surprised that they had FreezeGod on the snipe in Ares. Normally it's Ares that plays anything hit scan. That goes to Ares. That switch up yesterday shows that they're uncomfortable, unsure of locking down who's playing what.
Well, I think it's a much more, and this is just being objective and, not anything. I think it's just that FreezeGod is the first DPS. He's the guy that you're going to go first. And on that map that we saw, the sniper has to be the front and center DPS
the hyper carry,
right?
yeah.
So you put all right, this isn't your usual style, but you're a cleanup hitter. Go up there and see what happens. And it just wasn't the deal. And I think this is very intelligent from SSG and Kresnik, because there's one thing to say about Paladins meta. It's meta to play sniper versus sniper, but it's another thing to understand your team and its individual strengths, and your team's meta approach to the game is all meta means, and SSG's approach to the game is sniperless. Ban them both out and put yourself in a better position.
These are great. Yeah, great response picks from the Knights as well. I think Rukata is important to get comfortable, and I think Cassie is, frankly, his best character outside of the niche snipers and the weaker now hit scan pool with Leon and Tyra being more map dependent and comp dependent. So really good that they managed to grab the Cassie for the Knights. Also puts a little bit of pressure on SSG. I'm wondering what they're going to finish out with. I don't know why I want to lean towards Tyra today. I think the synergy with Eevee is there.
Yeah.
I think the synergy there against Makoa is going to be important.
You are not welcome
Usually
here.
you need some type of damage amp or percentage-based HP damage to try and help you deal, whether it's big game, whether it's debilitate Sky. I don't think we're going to go there, to be fair. But you need something to shred down the healthiest character in the game.
Maldamba on the other side of things is a real nice pick for Cuss. We like to see him on this one. And that really comes to, I just think Maldamba's your classic type healer character. And Cuss has really worked out well with that. The Inara and the Ceres is what the black and yellow, well, they're both black and yellow, so it is what it is. But that's what Space Station's going with. And just straight up, talk to me about Ceres and why we see her here.
Well, Ceres is that super, super high throughput, long-range healer, and that's, at the end of the day, I think what they were looking for. Damba has that ceiling. He has the big crowd control ultimate that is much more guaranteeable than the convergence from Ceres. Drogo's locked in, though. Has been kind of, again, leaning towards Tyro. Would it be enough? Do they need to pick up something like a Leon? I'm really wondering what SSG are going to round out with here.
I want the consistent DPS. You mentioned the Tyra. Something like that I think would be really important.
It's kind of uncommon on Frog Isle the more and more I think about it.
Fair.
There's something going on, I think, with SSG here. They're going to have to take some time. They took a lot of time. They're going to have to go. They almost went into bank with that first sniper ban. They were kind of like, there's really a couple ways we can go here. I'll be honest, whatever it is, and it is going to be the Tyra, I'm not sure that the Knights are worried about that. We saw this on Brightmarsh. Brightmarsh is a better Tyra map, but the thing that Tyra struggles with, and it will be amplified on Frog Isle, is that these lines of sight are just too long. She is a mid to close character.
I really like Space Station Gaming's approach to this situation.
Yeah.
I think they really thought this draft out. They were really intelligent. All the superlatives about being big-brained. That said, Knights draft just seems to be better.
Yeah, I think Ares is really not the guy that is going to be looked at to carry this game. That being said, I think the marks are going to elevate FreezeGod's potential, as well as Sadak's Atlas is one of the best in the league, and he's got to show it.
Here it is, black and yellow, black and yellow. Game number 1. Let's get into it with the casters.
Appreciate it, fellas. I'm Dolson. That's Gormizer, and we are your casters for set number 1. That was a great intro.
That is 100% true. Everything you just said.
I've not overstepped my boundaries. I don't think
You have not lied to the viewers.
I have not lied to the viewers. Makoa making his way back through, though, and the Knights really still flexing their pick ban potential here.
Yeah.
They've really come out swinging. They've put a good draft on the board, Gore.
I have one thing to say for SSG, and that's just they got to get some sniper play in there somewhere. I mean, that's the kind of unfortunate scenario. It feels like they're almost forced to ban out the Strix and Kinessa just because they can't play it at the level that, well, Rakata would play it if he gets either of those champions. So let the Makoa through. I think that he's going to be a little more manageable, especially when you have the Tyra coming through, but it's putting a lot of, I want to say, pressure on Ares to make sure this Tyra hits its performance standard.
And the range advantage, and that was something they touched on the desk as well, is that Tyra's a good pick. You know, obviously the damage amp and all that's important. But you just don't have the same amount of range that a Cassie does, and the Drogos, of course, does as well. So it's really going to be up to Space Station to take some of these fights a little closer on, because some of these line of sights, especially on Frog Isle, get very, very long. Space Station, though, they're the ones who are on the point first with 57%. Pittsburgh Knights looking to fight back. G-Bunny's getting chunked out right now. First blood goes the way of Ricotta in this case. Getting some good healing in there is G-Bunny, but the shots this time go the way of FRZ God. That's a great hook. Aries gets pulled in, but the damage isn't there. Instead, it's Freeze God and Rochelle who are answering back. Payan, though, flying up high and above on the Dragon answers for the Pittsburgh Knights in this case, but still 69% is where Space Station Gaming are going to stall out here, but the numbers are firmly in control of red right now. Blue has to back off.
And this wall is just causing so much distress. The Throne, they're going to be able to try and get in there, but this is actually where the things go wrong for them. You have Eevee just doing well in general. Dread Seven's going to come through to be able to create a little space, but I don't know if it's going to be the big difference maker. G-Bunny is just getting melted anytime he shows his face.
G-Bunny keeps wrapping around the corner. First point goes the way of Space Station. All they need is a Convergent and an Ice Storm to do it. The Knights throwing some ultimates at the wall at the end of this one, and Aries gets the crossfire through, so not only do they capture the point, but they get 3 kills on top of it, so this payload's already moving forward.
And there were a lot of moments where Aries showcased why Tyra is going to be good here. The Tyra isn't the counter to the Drogos. It's going to help against the Drogos, but Tyra does not care about him right now. Tyra is here to kill Makoa, and that is what he's been doing. Every single time I've seen G-Bunny poke out, a mark goes onto him, and then immediately 2 or 3 people are shooting at him, and his health bar just disappears. You cannot survive that onslaught, and that is what it is. This is what I've kind of been waiting for. When you can figure out how to handle Makoa or deal with Makoa, you don't have to ban him anymore, and you can at least open up that door to ban something else.
And even on top of that, you need to figure out how to handle G-Bunny, because he makes such an impact on all of these games that he's in. There's a good Dragon Punch, especially under Rashad, but they answer back. Sadak with the callback on that one. The Atlas staying alive, but sort of pointing that out. I mean, here's the Exiles. So they're going to get one, in this case, onto Dethroner. So the Barrack out of play. The last one missing, just wide there, so the cooldown fully reset. Payload stalled out where it's at, though. But controlling G-Bunny is so important in this case, and that was sort of what I was mentioning. Makoa, Atlas, Khan, whoever it is, you need to be able to control G-Bunny. And they're jumping on him early and often in this case. 2 kills roll through here, Goremizer. This could end up going in. That's going to be the Ancient Rage. He starts swinging away, giving himself a little extra health. But Payan, they haven't looked at him yet. Finally, he goes just a little bit too low, but he's able to get back up. So nice from Midtown. FRZ got to combine for a kill onto that one. G-Bunny's low, but this payload, it's getting ever closer.
You know, I was actually going to say I liked the way the Knights chose Frog Isle, because it feels like it would be, and so far it's proven to be, kind of Space Station's weakest map overall, but they are playing this to the book. I mean, Freeze God being able to get Eevee is just almost death sentence for a lot of teams, and in conjunction with the hit scan damage from Atlas, it's just doing so much work.
And this is what we talked about. We said you need to be able to take these fights close to medium range, and you need to do it early, and you need to do it often, and that is exactly what Space Station have done up to this point. They're not trying to tangle, really, with Pittsburgh from too far away, because they know that the Drogos range and the Cassie range is going to punish them, and they just get so aggressive time after time. They jump on G-Bunny every time he shows his face, and that's why they're up here 2-0.
Well, it's that argument. When you're looking at it, they've done a few things with their composition, and it is kind of like what Cuss said in his interview, where it's just they have one of the best flanks off-tank combos that you could have, and when you have Sadak performing the way he is, where it's just, okay, I'm going to throw my shield or my wall, stop some of the damage coming through, and then I'm going to hit 2 or 3 shots. It's going to be on 3 different targets. It's not going to be anything that's impactful just from me, and then you see Freeze God is 7-1, and that's where that damage is being applied. It is being turned into the Eevee skills.
Freeze God having an incredible first half to this one here on Frog Isle. The Temporal Divide buying some space for Space Station Gaming. In comes the Dragon Punch. Oh, what a beautiful ice block there. Gets Freeze God out of the way of danger, and the Crossfire is going to come out on the back end of it. They don't have the range in that case. Instead, it's Midtow and Aries who has the kill. That's a good hook, but yet again, G-Bunny melted right on through. There's 3 members left of the Knights, but 0 of them are in contest range. Space Station Gaming they're poised to take point number 3.
I mean, they just play that one perfectly. Not only the ice block, but being able to just kind of dance around. The biggest thing Aries has been doing, and it feels maybe like a little bit of unluckiness on the side of G-Bunny, is it feels like he's reloading almost every single time G-Bunny is getting the hook. And just because of the timing on it, the reload goes through. So once G-Bunny pulls him there, Aries is in your face with a full clip, and he's ready to go.
They're almost, and it could be what they're doing, but the way it almost seems is like they're baiting G-Bunny to hook somebody, and then the rest of the team immediately, it's like he's almost hooking himself into death every single time, and that's just because of the follow-ups from Spacestation. Finally, some kills coming up in favor of Blue. Spacestation on the back foot for seemingly the first time this entire game. Things were getting dangerous there after the point capture. Spacestation added another full team wipe onto it, so that payload could have been moving forward. Dragon Punch comes through again for Pay, and the last couple haven't been that impactful. This one's going to miss as well. That's a good flame spit, buys a little bit of damage. Temporal Divide negates about half of it, though. Ultimate's already starting to fly. Both sides back and forth. FRZ God, you got to lock down this Eevee one way or the other. Ricotta, though, he's the first to go, and yet again, G-Bunny frontlining the damage right here. The rest of his teammates are falling left and right. He's left alone on an island. And Spacestation fight their way back, 7-1. I mean, anywhere you look on that right-hand side, Gore, is a great slash line.
So, looking at Aries, 51,000 damage, 50,000 of that has been killing G-Bunny off 8 times. Like, you know, like it is just, we're going to melt this guy. And every single time G-Bunny finally feels confident, a Tyra mark into a full clip from Tyra into like 1 or 2 shots from Freeze God. Like, Freeze God isn't getting as many kills this round. It's Rich Out, it's Aries. They're 9-2, 9-3, but they're playing this so well as a team, as a unit, that things are working really well. And again, it's just the dynamic. They have Sarah Sonara to control the point and have solid support, and then the other 3 are just a kill ball.
And you bring up Aries in that conversation as he adds another one to his tally in this one. His Tyra has become something that you really have to look at. He played it so many times yesterday to amazing success. Almost every single time. The Ancient Rage comes through in this case for G-Bunny, as well as the Dragon Punch. This one does find a target onto Sadak. Ricotta adds one, but Freeze God, he's still alive. That slippery Eevee, she's going to be blinking around and doing damage. Ricotta locks that one down with some good shots. Spacestation Gaming, they get cleaned up, but 10 seconds left on the clock. Not sure they'll be able to make it back. It seems like the Knights are going to find point number 1.
I will say, I can count probably on both hands the amount of times I've seen EVs hit a Drogoz while they are in air and Drogoz is in air. Like, both of them kind of playing that, like, 4D chess you have to play to hit that shot.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure at least half of those are going to be Freeze God. Like, if not more, are going to be just him. Because, I mean, even there was a point he just kind of put himself on top of Drogoz's head and bonked him with the Ice Staff more than actually find the meaningful shots. And it's just such a
hook, but
healthy dynamic coming down from SSG right now that the priority has to be on Tyra, because she's the one that's causing, I think, the most trouble for you, not just because of the 11-3-11 slash line, but that's where the damage is coming from. That's why Eevee's able to hit you as hard as she is right now. And so you don't want to hook Eevee. If you're G-Bunny, you want to hook Aries, but you don't want to hook Aries because every time you've done it, he kills you.
And you have Wrecker 3. At that point, if you're Dethroner or G-Bunny, you might as well not put out a shield, because look at how fast that melts away.
God.
Oh my God, I hope you didn't blink, because G-Bunny was there and then he wasn't the next second. Dethroner gets exiled. He's going to come right out of that into a death here in a moment. There it is. Oh my, Gore, I hope you can breathe now, because that was fast.
I don't think I've ever seen 5 people die that fast. I don't think I've seen shields disappear that fast.
My breath was taken away. I did not expect that in the least. That was the fastest team wipe I've maybe ever seen.
And they've turned it into a pretty solid. There's going to be a Dread Server. They're trying to get back to the point, though, and this is just all SSG right now. They're at 90%, no one's touched.
Finally, G-Bunny adds a kill instead of the one being killed, but he's in the eye of Rochelle and Aries. He's going to go down. Overtime's going to tick away, and Spacestation Gaming, what a start to the day for them. 4-1. That felt like a 4-0, though. And, I mean, they cap it off. They cross their T's, they dot their I's. That final team fight was something of wonder.
My mind's still stuck in that 5-man wipe. I genuinely don't think I've seen 5 people die that fast in any game ever. And so seeing that happen here, I mean, that's like some team SWAT. Like, I got 5 headshots and 5 kills. Like, that's the only way to match that speed. That crossfire, along with the wrecker, which was perfectly timed, just melts everything that happens right there. A good convergence. Like, everything about that fight was so good from SSG.
That was just calculated aggression. The Knights did not, even for a moment, have a chance to breathe in that one.
And
Space Station Gaming. Yeah, I know. That's right. Space Station Gaming, they're on the board first with the 1-0 lead here. Let's hear what the desk is thinking.
Space Station Gamer on the board, but we're anything but. This is as exciting as a game number 1 gets. And what's more exciting, and maybe even more scary, is that Space Station Gaming have just beat the meta. When we were talking about how SSG were playing their own game with this Band of Snipers and the Makoa. That's all well and good when you're still threatened by the Makoa, but SSG come out and they go, everyone is afraid of this character except us. Y'all better adapt.
He's been banned for so long. He's never honestly really been exposed to a lot of metas. There have been metas completely void of this character. And when he comes back in, and you come back in against characters like Atlas, characters like Tyra, right? When she's never had that hunting party. Makoa's never had to be successful against 25% damage amp from the entire team. He's much less tanky in that type of situation. I thought Sadak played really, really nicely with the Temporal Divide, completely splitting the map in half at times. They really just could not get in there and back this Makoa up if he was ever to dive.
And that was also the thing we said. I kind of said Pittsburgh Knights win this draft. Jeez. But there's always an asterisk when you're watching SSG play. And this man, he's a star. He's an asterisk. FRZ God, he can always just dunk it. That is always the threat, especially if you give him Eevee. I think you've slanted the tables in Space Station's favor, and things went exactly the way Space Station drafted it up. They let the other enemy team get Makoa. They isolated out with, what was that, rank 3 wrecker, I think, on the tower. Just go in and then let Freeze God do his thing.
I mean, some of these clips, man, I'll tell you what, these are nuts. This was that final team fight. He does a great job. That's a very, very nicely positioned Ice Storm. The Temporal Divide was huge to keep Ares and Mittal safe, but the Ice Storm was kind of the icing on the cake there for me. They did so well to shut that down. That was a very desperate team fight from the Knights. They were just like, we have to just go all in here. I don't think we're going to win this any other way. We got to get a lucky pick.
And just unlucky there for Pittsburgh Knights. Fantastic stuff out of SSG. I'm going to keep saying that word fantastic because it was great, but it was almost stuff of dreams. That team wipe.
It was very good.
That team wipe? You heard Gore.
It was scary. And the part of that was the scariest was that yesterday Ares felt more like a role player on this Tyra, but today, I mean, he was top damage at points in this game, and that is just so difficult to deal with. It speaks to the lack of dive the Knights had to displace this Tyra. It speaks to the safety that Temporal Divide provided her. Like we talked about, she might struggle with some of these line of sights. Not if the map is cut in half.
Yeah, just able to just walk in a different direction. And I think also...
It's a one-way mirror, too.
That's the worst part about it. I think the big deal there is when you look at SSG and their ability to switch things up. So first ban's kind of normal here. Torvald and the Makoa. The Eevee is going to be banned out. So Space Station, they don't want to first pick the Eevee. Is
they
what
do this with their
us.
first pick, I'm starting to notice. And it's one of the more unique, identifiable trends in the draft like this. And this is particular against, like we said, teams that love Eevee, but at this point, pretty much everyone's got an Eevee player that will be very, very happy to take it. Knights have a nice response, though. I think they're at their best, like I said, when they can get to Throner on this Ashe and go for this double aggro tank style.
Yeah, the Ashe-Con combination here for Knights is absolutely what they're looking for and where they perform their best. So we'll see Knights kind of on their best foot as SSG were in game number 1. And you brought up Ares kind of yesterday being sort of a role player, and I think that this was SSG, this was the height of what a role player does. Because when we say role player, usually it's just there's a more star player above him or below him or whatnot. Well, when your role is the Tyra player, your job is to destroy the shields and the Makoa. That's the thesis of that last set. So Tyra, Ares, his role was to step up, and I think he did just that. And when your role players are performing, that's when you've got a full composition.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, indeed. Same 2 4-5 picks here for Cassie and Maldamba, but this time pick for SSG. Again, good for the same reasons, I think. Forcing Rukata had to have to play something different. Snipers are very uncommon at this point on Ascension Peak. Leon is sometimes. With both flanks banned out, Leon has good matchups against flanks. That makes her less valuable. The likelihood that Freeze-God goes into Drogos doesn't really seem there, so it doesn't make her as viable. He really, I think, you know, they're hovering the Tyra, and I think that's where they have to lean at this point. There's not much left for Ricotta in this draft.
Again, not only is it a take for Knights, but it's also a ban away from SSG. They do have one more spot in that DPS area, and with how well Ares looked on Tyra, again, kind of match specific, but even still, something to think about. The Vivian,
It's tough to push into.
Thought.
Yeah, when it's that same conversation that we just had about Ricotta. Now we have to have it about Ares. There's, like I said, the hit scan pool is the shallowest it's ever been right now in this meta. And Vivian is just kind of what's left in some of these cases. There's no damage amp left, but she damage amps herself. She has to fire for 2 seconds. It kind of looks funny, but there is so much potential for this Knights draft to bulldoze. That team fight that they tried to take at the end of game 1, this is the comp they wish they had to do that with.
I think the Bomb King will be, it's odd to say this, maybe not, I think the Bomb King will be a little bit more reliable than the Drogos was last game for Knights.
I agree. I think the Drogos, he struggles, man. Again, cutting the map in half is not easy for him. One thing that I kind of failed to mention in the draft was that they have this mid to close range hit scan pressure, and that's great, but it was really the threat of the Atlas as well. Being plugged for a hunting party is going to amp that up north of 1,000 damage. That is a huge chunk of that Drogos' health, and he is effectively becomes a sniper. He hits so hard and very, very consistently that Pan just kind of struggled in the sky.
It's tough, man. Spacestation Gaming, they've got a draft. Last time around, I said that they kind of lost the draft, but they won the game. Here, I'm a little bit more divided. Real quick, who takes this one?
I love both of these. The players literally will decide this. These are great drafts.
It's the best type of game. Game number 2 on the way. Let's toss it to Dawson.
If we're jumping down, if we're leaving it up to the players, SSG are throwing their hat in that ring, at least if they play the same way they did last time around. Gore, you and I are still talking about that final team fight. We have not moved away from that.
Literally, it actually has just carried over because afterward, like, obviously we were highlighting, like, good moments for the casting, what we liked, maybe anything we didn't, but then, like, it was just how perfect timing everything happened in that scenario was.
Unreal.
And that's the one thing. Right now, SSG, there's 2 ways to look at playing 4 sets in a week, especially 4 sets in 2 days.
Yep.
You can look at it as, that's a lot of games. And it is.
It is.
But when they are a team who has done this at LAN in the past, you can look at it as, well, they've done it before, and now they're coming in with the most practice. They are getting the best experience in 2 days that they are going to have more than any scrim could provide.
And that's, I mean, that's one thing I mentioned, I think, to Nick on the desk is at the end of the day, this is how LAN is going to be. You're going to have to play a lot of games in a short period of time here in our studio, and that's exactly what Space Station are experiencing, and they're flourishing at the moment in this environment. A little bit of a more back and forth thing. Pan taking this early team fight over. Has 2 already on the Bomb King. Make that 3, maybe even 4. Pittsburgh Knights, they're on the point now with 48%. Pan goes low, gets some good healing from the Con Battle Shout there, and now they're going to get aggressive onto Sadak. Pittsburgh Knights, they take point number 1 over.
I would argue, honestly, I think the Knights have a stronger draft overall. I think it's going to be the most consistent. I think SSG have a higher cap to hit their performance, but can win because of that kind of deal. You know what I mean? Where it's going to be even, it's going to be determined by the players, but SSG's handicap is the fact that they have a higher execution threshold, whereas Knights are like, cool, Mark, Luminary, Bomb King, go boom.
Right, I mean, it's like lower floor versus higher ceiling sort of debate. In this case, though, trading out FRZ and Rochelle, unfortunately for the Space Station Gaming side, are the first 2 to be lost here. Pan, though, one of the essential members on the side of the Knights, gets taken out immediately. Pittsburgh are playing with a little bit of house money right here with 96% on the point. They have a little bit of room for error. Space Station, though, they cannot step off of this point even for a moment. Through time and space goes through, just goes wide. Ricotta now on the Tyra finds the first opening kill of this one. Overtime blinking away now, Gore, but it's a 4v4 now, excuse me, in favor of Space Station.
And now they've used a lot of ults on the Knights as well. There was an overpower that did not connect, and that's the glorious thing about this. Not only like what you said, they have to fight on the point, but they have these statues. They can fight on the objective and stay safe, and it's just dancing around. That was 4 ults used by the Knights to confirm that fight, and pretty much from the first one, which I believe was the King Bomb that got thrown out, they just weren't able to connect them the way I think they wanted to.
Now this gets scary on the opposite side for the Knights. If Space Station are able to put a good zone in here, as the shoulder bash goes through and the assert dominance goes down, that's good for a stun on a Sadak. Pan with the opening kill in this engagement. onto Rishao. Aries having to back off. The Bomb King is really firing on all cylinders right now for Payan, and he's getting aggressive. Mid-Tow's in his sights, but he has to be careful if he doesn't want Aries to take him down, but it's not going to happen. A double kill for the Bomb King. Payan seals up point number 1. 9-2. 9 kills already, 3 minutes into this one.
Now, if I remember correctly, the last time these two teams played, it was a 5-game set. Knights were able to win 1 map, and that map was Ascension Peak.
All right.
And so this is one that historically has gone towards the Knights, and I think you can kind of see why, although I will definitely say there's an outlier on their team. You look at their slash lines. There's 2-2, there's 0-1, there's 2-1, 0-2, and then you've got Pan at 9-2-0. He's literally the team right now.
An outlier in the best sense, not an outlier in the worst sense. He is 9-2. He's doing big things. Cuss Cutie, of course, on the 10 streak on the Genos. He had his absurd streak on the Grover at the end of yesterday's game. He was a 32 streak or something along those lines on the Grover, and he's doing a little bit more of the same here. 10 streak burning away on the Genos. Spacestation want to take this engagement as far back as possible to keep Pittsburgh from getting anywhere close. The King Bomb rolls through right here. Who's going to be able to find? It does end up being Sadak, and he gets the kill before going down. He doesn't even go down.
Wow.
The Poppy Bomb up and over. Aries secures that kill, and he's still firing away. He has 2. Make it 3 now. Payan is tearing through Space Station Gaming.
I mean, there have been moments these last few weeks where it's been like, man, is Bomb King as strong as he used to be? Like, it kind of leaves you questioning it afterward. Pan's answering that with an emphatic yes. Like, he is still really, really good. And when you can bring him through on the maps he's good at, granted, he has damage amp, but he has 2 sources of damage amp that are going to just blow him through the roof with what he has. And admittedly, this is a kind of composition that's built around, let's get one guy to be the carry, and he's carrying.
Does that healing surprise you, Gore? That Genos is 20,000 above Maldamba?
Not that much.
Okay.
And it's mainly because of the fact that it feels like SSG are getting so bullied they don't get to heal that often.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
That's true.
Maldamba is in
That's
an
fair.
unfortunate scenario. Like, I've seen several healers go into, like, the Barrack or into the Atlas and had it get negated almost immediately by 2 bombs that flew through. And that's the thing, is the damage numbers on the side of Knights should be, at least for Bomb King, should be so outrageous that you almost can't keep up with it in terms of healing. You're going to have to hope
That's true.
that late game
There's
you
just
deal
not
with it
enough
better.
uptime on the rest of the teammates to be able to heal them. That's entirely a fair way of looking at it. 1 second away. Payload's still a good distance. Not going to be able to get a touch. So answering back, Space Station Gaming, despite being seemingly on the losing end of a lot of these mid-fights, Space Station answer back with a big defense. That's very important. You can't let either team get some momentum. So it's also important that Pittsburgh came out immediately with a point win, because if Space Station continued what they had set up on Frog Isle, this could have been a very short set. So it's important, I think, that Pittsburgh were able to answer back there, and Payan's really the reason behind that. I mean, the healing's been good. The frontline play from G-Bunny on the con has been great as well. But Payan is taking full advantage of the moments that have been set up for him, and he's making Space Station pay right now.
Well, here's the scary thing to come through with it. A lot of these plays, like that last one was with a King Bomb, but a lot of what we've seen him doing has been just Bomb King in hands and really good Poppy Bomb positioning, right? Grumpy Bomb's going to be used to kind of make people position the way that that you want them to, whereas King Bomb is going to be like your engage. But the thing is you can throw out every single King Bomb you charge. You can throw it out whenever you want, because you're doing so much, like just such outrageous damage in terms of just a single in-hand. You're going to charge it up, no problem. Like, this is actually part of the reason for a long time when Fusillade Drogos was big, we would see people run for a morale boost on Drogos instead of any of the red cards, and it was just because I can charge my ult so much that, well, with Drogos, it's an execute. I get this execute so outrageously often. And the thing is like, Pan's doing 49,000, almost 50,000 damage. Surprisingly enough, Freeze God, which a lot of this was probably towards the end of the round, kind of stabilizing it. 9-4, and still being able to take the top. If Payan dethrones the Cassie, I think that's going to be the threshold where you can kind of look at what Ricotta and Cuss are providing to him in terms of their damage, like amplification, and that's when things get, I think, a lot more scary for SSG.
And that's important. I mean, we keep saying Payan's name, but on the opposite side, Freeze God being able to stabilize and really keep up with and surpass damage-wise, at least, the Bomb King in this case is so important for Space Station. And they need to keep that up. They're the ones fighting from the point to start off this round. That's going to be a good toss right over the head. Sadak gets thrown right into the fishes. Sentinels out and flying now, though, for Ares. Cuskcutie is the benefactor of kill number 1 in this case.
This is actually probably one of the best things. Like, while Sentinels is going to be really good in trying to help equalize, as another overpower doesn't connect right there. The big thing is that these Sentinels can be capitalized on by a Bomb King. He doesn't have to hit the Vivian. He can just blow up nearby, and it will get rid of him. He's going to be getting aggressive right now. That wall going to be only doing a little bit.
Confidence.
Pan just knows what he's doing.
That confidence to stare down a Vivian who's been free-firing and take the kill. That's just an unspoken thing, and Pan's playing with it today. Space Station up to 75%, though. In this case, the kill onto the Vivian. Not enough for the Knights to retake. The King Bomb actually is going to come through. I'm not sure he has enough time to get in onto the objective. He doesn't even find the stun either. But the way he's been doing damage, that should get charged up relatively quickly. 37% already on the King Bomb. So maybe just throwing it at the wall, maybe seeing a potential. So not the biggest investment on that side.
The thing is SSG played this one a little more appropriately. You'll notice like there wasn't anywhere near as many kills as round 1, anywhere near as close of a point fight. And it was just because they recognized where Knights needed to be, what they needed to do to make kind of like all the stars align. And again, it's not a 4 protect 1, it's not a 4 into 1 strategy where Bomb King's gonna be the only source of damage.
Right.
But if you keep Pan kind of corralled backwards a little bit, and you deal with the Genos, you deal with the Tyra, no one else can really step up to the plate and be the player that you need to come through and find 3 kills in a fight.
Putting the cap on the Bomb King has been the important, I think, lesson from Space Station. And as you said, they've done exactly that. Whether it's slow things down or speed things up to the point where the fight doesn't go on long enough for Pan to have pop-off moments. Ricotta stabilizing things. He's on the Tyra this time around. Gonna take that away from Ares. And then you have to look at G-Bunny being back on the con again. I mean, he had a good game last game, or no, he had a rough game last game, I should say. That overpower is going to connect, and a good shield saves him from Rochelle, and he's going to turn around some damage. He has the help of Pan, of course. That's well calculated there from the Knights. Rounds the corner, uses the shield, uses his teammates, finds one onto Rochelle. Now they're pushing through. Quick look at the stats mid-game here. 14-5, so he's definitely stabilized. He was what, 9-2 or 12-2 or something like that off the first go of things. So he's now 2-3 in the ensuing time span.
Definitely being held down a little more, but the biggest thing to me is that you can look at the other side and see the same thing. FreezeGod went from 10-4, I think, to 10-7 now, and the damage numbers are getting a little closer. The longer FreezeGod gets taken down, the better it is for the Knights. I think this Cassie is honestly, like, Vivian's doing a lot of damage, but I want to say Cassie is probably their biggest equalizing factor. I think you have to look at both of them. Ares and FreezeGod both had a stellar performance last game.
They did.
And normally we look at it the other way around, where it's like Ares just has to play, doesn't have to do anything crazy. FreezeGod has to pop off. I think it's actually Vivian needs to like continue this route where Ares is just doing well. Sentinels are about to come up, so you can do something big. Good. And you just hope the Cassie can perform.
G-Bunny extends his life just a little bit there. The Dread Serpent sends him into certain doom, and it was waiting for him at the end of that long run. Ares free-firing with a couple. He has to reload. Gets 70 back in that large clip that Vivian bolsters up to her side. Mid-tower, the healing's been good here. And while the payload was so far back, this is getting dangerously close. Space Station has some ultimate utility. Sentinel's coming out. That's one of the ultimates that can charge while you have it up. Dome Shield, though, you can throw that down, but they might not need it. They are going to toss it down, but Ares is just free-firing from the backline. He's doing so much damage. That's all they need. Space Station Gaming, they push it in, and what a start from Pittsburgh. And what a mitigation of that start from Space Station. It's 3-1 here.
If Atlas was not in this game, that would have been a much longer end of push fight. Yeah. But because Atlas, and he did exactly what you need to do. He walked up to the base, he looked where he was, and he said, you know what? I can just throw down a wall right here. Yep. And if you want to fight, you've got to come out of your base. You've got to come down and fight us here. Which you give up your high ground
otherwise
advantage.
We're going
to give up everything that's going to be really strong.
That shows you the benefit. I mean, the conversation with Atlas at least is always, you know, temporal divide versus deja vu, and this is and Ascension Peak has been one of those maps I think where we see temporal divide more often, and that is a good example of why you take it on this map, especially for that final push, because blocking off the entire enemy team is so important in this case.
Good.
Pittsburgh has to be very careful here. Sadak firmly on the gas pedal yet again. Ended the last round with some good utility play. Starting this round with some good offensive play. Space Station Gaming with the clean team fight. They're on the point, capping for the win.
And what I like is that SSG as a whole has just kind of revisited what are the target priorities. Again, if you're looking at this on paper, Bomb King's your issue. Bomb King's the problem. But they are able to go through and they just dip a little deeper. They're like, no, it's Tyra and Genos. They kill off Tyra and Genos, and all of a sudden, Knights are nowhere in this fight.
Those Exiles are so big, it just prevents 3 members of the Knights from catching up with the rest of the team. Rashao, the extra shielding is going to buy him some time, but the kills in the meantime. Ooh, nice snipe there from Cuss Cutie. It's a 3 versus 3 going into it. Healers alive for both teams, but Rakata's going to fall, tilting things even more so in the favor of Space Station Gaming. Sadak, he's at full health here. He's firing away. They're going to go down in Space Station. What a comeback from that first point down. They take map number 2, 4-1.
I don't know how Mitau survived that last fight.
Yeah, unreal.
Pan had one target in mind that entire time, and that target was Mitau. And he's doing a little dance. There's a nice couple of resets coming in from the Atlas to make sure everything could go well. Sadak played that really well to make sure that not only did they win that fight, but they won it with all 3 members. Like you said, it's a 3v3 coming into it, and they kept their 3.
Gore, if we had walked away from, or if you had walked away from your computer at 1-0 and then came back to see 4-1, I think you would be
surprised.
Kerfluffled. I don't know what the word is, but you would be so surprised because it was such a dominating first point from the Knights that time around, and then Space Station, they just found the answers.
And that's the one thing I think that the Knights haven't showcased as much as what we've seen out of SSG, out of a lot of the top teams. And this is something like Renegades even lacks, where it's just how do you change, how do you adapt mid-game? When you lose a round that hard, what do you do next round to make it different?
Well, they need to find a way to adapt. The Knights now do. They're down 2-0 here. Send it back to Tom and Nick and hear what they're thinking.
We're thinking a whole lot of things over here. One of them is Space Station. 2-0 so far.
Yeah.
So far. And honestly, the thing that scares me the most when you see a team, Space Station is on the up and up, right? They came in a little bit late. They kind of lag behind when it comes down to meta. But they have identified what it is to be Space Station Gaming. What I mean by that is, how do they approach the game? What is their meta? And I think that's the scariest, when a team unlocks that moment.
And that moment for me is finding out what Ares is going to play. The Vivians, the Tyras have been working for him.
Yeah.
And despite how aggressive and how much killing power this Knights composition had, they really fell flat in a couple of ways. The Bomb King was the only one who managed to get a nice little slash line going for him. And I was just watching the amount of uptime. I never felt that pressure. I never felt like the spearhead that I felt that the Knights could have made with this composition. When you give Vivian too much uptime, doing that DPS, it's just a bad time.
I mean, look at what Ares does. He just, again, knows his role. The Space Station Gaming Squad really understand trigger discipline and how to play their own game. Ares walks in and sweeps the right side. And if you notice during that whole replay section, Ares is sweeping, he walks in, he sweeps to the right side, and he's got teammates sweeping the left. He knows that he doesn't have to worry about that because he can rely on the squad. And that's what's made them so special.
Yes, lots of love here in the booth. They're feeling good about
That's weird.
Coach Kresnik, longing eyes there for Ares' Vivian, making it work in a lot of ways. I love what I've seen from this squad. But moreover, I was a little disappointed from the Knights there. I felt like there was so much killing power, was that potential, and they showed it at the end of that Frog Owl game. Granted, it fell flat on his face faster than any other team fight we may have seen in the 3-year history of Paladins. But they drafted a composition this time to back up that style, and I felt like we just never really saw. We never saw them try to run over SSG. When you have a Vivian like that, you don't have the ability to move around very quickly. Even Cassie, right? She's got the one roll, but then that's kind of it. They don't have the ability to kind of like move super quick. So if you really just kind of steamrolled and came straight at them, I think there was room for success.
Here was interesting because game number 1, I think Space Station just beat out Pittsburgh Knights. They were just the better team on the battlefield. Here, I saw Pittsburgh Knights kind of make these plays, kind of look for situations, and what happened was G-Bunny just got controlled. This was much less a situation where Pittsburgh Knights didn't show up. They showed up to game 2. I think SSG just pushed them out the door.
And the more I think about it, the more I keep coming back to Atlas. And it's such a tough character to play against. Stasis Field has 0 counterplay. You just have to wait it out. If you get set back, if you're approaching a point like you kind of brought up in the green room, that 4 seconds is a lot of distance that you are moving. It's different if you're kind of just brawling on the point, then you're really using it more to set their HP back to the lowest point it was in that 4 seconds. But when you're getting approached, it's just so tough to come at Atlas. He is like the best defensive, like gloves up type of frontliner I feel in the game.
And that's why Knights banning out. Very intelligent. Space Station Gaming. We're playing on Timber Mill, so the double sniper ban will not come through. This means SSG is allowing, and I use that word very specifically, Knights to first pick a Kinessa. Now, do you want to first pick a Kinessa is a larger conversation.
I don't know if you do. I think you maybe put that pressure on Ares. I think this is the trap they're walking you into. Like I said, it's not a bad pick, but knowing what the Knights are going to pick is a strength for SSG. That's what they're trying to do. And I think this is smart from the Knights to call their bluff and say, "Man, you guys don't play snipers."
Exactly. This is
take it last.
Yeah. This is wonderful. Space Station did exactly what you said, kind of lined Knights up here, and Knights, undeterred, undistracted, go with the Khan first pick. I understand how powerful the snipers can be on this map here, Nick, but I think, again, team identity. Play your own game. I'm going to say it 1,000 times, and Knights realize they perform best when their front line is comfortable, and they're going to grab the Khan and the Ash. This is exactly what Knights want to play, and they got it. My bigger question is, with SSG giving Freeze God, Eevee, and Kinessa also in the hands of their team, is this too big of a mountain to climb?
Well, Timbermill is one of the most polar opposite type of maps, and it's really kind of unique in that it's one of the maps that frontline presence just isn't what it is on other maps. Like, you don't really feel the game won or lost by the front lines a lot of the time. It really is these EVs, these snipers finding these long-range picks. The front lines, of course, help. They're still a part of the machine at the end of the day. But I'm really looking now. Ares needs to step up on this Kinessa. He has that sort of head and shoulders advantage. Maeve is being hovered here, but I think, Kinessa can do fine against the Maeve matchup.
But the Maeve is the type of character that succeeds on this map. So Knights right now, that's why they're kind of thinking about it. You had brought up that frontline doesn't really, it's not the same as frontline on other maps.
It's not the make or break.
But at the same time, that's where Knights kind of are, that's their strength. So the question is, do you abandon your strength and play towards the map, or do you just hope that your strength on the front line is enough to kind of take that over?
This is like the perfect experiment, right? Because you look at the Knights, they have the 2 aggro tanks versus the 2 point tanks of SSG. What I like about the point tanks on Timber Mill is that I feel there's just a lot of times too much damn space to cover for these big boys. They can't move around effectively enough to stay in the fight. So I like having guys with a lot of staying power. And Nara, Barrack, backed up by a Maldamba, and you have Kinessa and Eevee as well. You have the only sniper, and you have her, apex predator in Eevee as well. Maeve is going to do her best. But at the end of the day, I really do like this from SSG. However, I feel like it could work for the Knights. I just don't know how they're going to make it work. I think Rubu did a phenomenal job yesterday. He got Mako on Timbermill. I was questioning it. I was like, I don't know. He doesn't have the mobility. I don't know how he's going to stay involved in fights long enough. He finished like 12-6. He proved me wrong, and I'm happy to be proved wrong. I'm happy to learn more about Timbermill.
I mean, that's our favorite spot. I say it all the time. You get the tweets like, "Oh, you guys were wrong." As a commentator, I kind of like being wrong because that means I was surprised, and that's what we kind of show up here for. Looking at the 2 drafts, I think that Space Station Gaming have a draft that they are very comfortable on. Kinessa maybe a little bit interesting, but Eevee and Yanara and the Barrack across the way. Knights also very comfortable, but who's I think Space Station have just dug in a little bit more, and the map in Space Station's favor here. I'm leaning Space Station all the way here.
It's 2 completely different comps that have their pros and cons. I think Space Station's is just easier to do.
We'll check it out. Is it 3-0 or 2-1? Gormizer, Dolson, take us away.
Appreciate it, fellas. This game does have its pros, 10 of them, in fact, playing on 5 on either team. And it also has its cons. There is 1 con in this game. This time around, he is on the side of the Pittsburgh Knights.
I'm really glad because, I'm glad that my awkward laugh, I'm making this joke that I know is terrible, didn't get to come through, but I'm glad the joke, in essence, still
it still
found
made its way
to
through.
the broadcast.
Oh, that was. I'm not the type to
cons.
tell a joke or to hear a joke from somebody in class and then say it out loud, and then everyone laughs at me and thinks I'm the funny one. 100% of that credit goes to Gormizer. 0% goes to me. The inspiration behind that was absolutely Gore in between the throw there. So
well, the true inspiration was Nick for just throwing out the one phrase of pros and cons, and then me laughing.
Maybe
like
Nick meant it, and we didn't even realize it. He probably did, knowing him. The early engages to look at here. How are you going to deal with this Kinessa? Because you have Maeve. Is that how you deal with the Kinessa.
Well, ideally, that's what you're going to do, but you can kind of see they're playing a little separated, or not separated. They're actually playing clustered on the side of SSG. FreezeGod has no real reason to be up there with Kinessa. You'd actually love to be down here against Ricotta, maybe boxing him out, or over there on the side, dealing with the Khan, dealing with the Maeve. But he's kind of playing bodyguard. He's like, all right, Maeve, come on up here. Like, Kinessa might not be able to deal with you up close. I can. Let's see what you can do. And Knights just... They lose to Throner. I think that's the only kill that has happened this entire time, at least the only one that I caught. Now it's going to be G-Bunny this time. So yeah, there's 2 deaths. One very early on, one right now. And they just capture the point.
And that's such a good point because you saw Ricotta trying to box with Ares, trying to throw out shot for shot. Ricotta connecting a good bit of the time, but then immediately mitigated by the healing from Mitau up top there. And look at that. That's a free-firing Ares. That's an Ares with 6,000 damage more than anyone else in the game because he's able to sit there, take a shot to the chin, realizes the healing's there, and doesn't have to go anywhere. Just keeps firing from up top.
And you know what the desk said was the con pick, the first pick con from the Knights, with Strix being banned, was them calling the bluff, saying, you know what, SSG, you don't play snipers. And that is true to an extent. They don't play snipers often, and when they do play snipers in a sniper matchup, FreezeGod right there, making a big play. But when they play it in the matchup, if it's Kinessa versus Strix, Ares doesn't typically get the pop-boss performance you'd see out of like Ricotta, out of Invocal, out of Rock Monkey, etc., etc. But when it's a free-firing Kinessa, you know he's going to do his job.
Right. You absolutely do. Yeah, I mean, and that's something you have to address. You can't just let that happen. But unfortunately, right now, Spacestation are just unstoppable. This one could roll through. It's getting dangerously close. About half the time left on the clock, but only about 5% of the way to go here for the payload. This next team fight, I think, is going to dictate it. Dethroner's very low down on the bottom, gets a little bit of healing, goes through. These are the shots from Ricotta that have been hitting, but such good healing from Mitau as well comes through. G-Bunny, he opens things up. Sadak and FreezeGod each answering back with a kill. Now Dethroner has to dash his way out right into the teleporter, actually. Well played by him. He drops down. He's going to get hunted down by Sadak. Seismic Crash is just going to seal this one up. This payload's going in, and Spacestation are 2 away from the 3-0.
I'm going to go ahead and say this. When you're sitting around, and I'm going to say this because the Knights chose Frog Isle as well, and so it's like I'm looking at it, and historically, and maybe even statistically, I'm not sure, the worst maps that SSG have, or the ones that they lose the most on, would be Frog Isle, Timber Mill. Like, they're the ones that they're weakest on, and it is because of the sniper game. It's because they're forced to ban things that maybe they're not forced to ban in other places.
Yeah.
But now they've locked those down. Like, they figured out a way to draft that where their weaknesses still exists, but they don't have to play against it. Like, they're not playing that meta. They're playing a different one because they're forcing it to be in their favor.
Nobody on Pittsburgh has been able to find damage, save Dethroner, because he has to get up and get aggressive on the Ashe. And Spacestation 505, or maybe 406 on both Sadak and FreezeGod. So 406 for Freeze, 505 for Sadak. And if you're going to choose 2 people on your team to have slash lines like that, your damage dealer and also your frontliner, the multifaceted presence, is exactly what you would look for. That's exactly what Spacestation are getting here. Midnight buys some space, but it's not going to matter. FreezeGod finds the kill anyway, right into the ice block, finally going down. Ricotta as well is able to answer back, and they have fast caps, so you have to be careful here, but Spacestation were on the point initially, so mitigating a little bit of what the Knights were maybe able to gain here. Still a couple alive, but the Knights win, I think, their first fight of this game, and now they're on the point.
And admittedly, like, they still play it really well on SSG. Like, FreezeGod has a Maeve chasing him and keeps going, goes into the back, kills off Dethroner. Like, finds a pick. Right now, though, that might actually be a MiG display right now. 93%. Knights could have captured by now. They're finally going to be able to step down, but they get the 2 kills they need, and that should seal the deal for them.
Cuss Cutie took this one over through time and space into the gun just to seal things off, the primary attack. They are going to get the overtime touch here, but all kills are blue. Cuss Cutie having a game for himself, having a point fight for himself there. That was important. They needed to fight back. I think if that one went Spacestation 3, it was going to roll through into a 4-0. But now the Knights attacking with a chance at tying things up. But of course, Spacestation with a successful defense here will go up to 3-1. Ooh, good shots. FreezeGod has been, and I mean this in the most respectful way possible, but so annoying probably to play against for the Knights. Like he's hitting every shot and also using that EV mobility to the highest potential.
And not only that, but the thing is like, he is making calls, I think, on Eevee that, and this is something I think I say almost every time I see him play Eevee, but it's just things that you only can do when you are so used to the champion that it's second nature, right?
Right.
Him playing Eevee isn't him having to make cognitive decisions about what to do. It's just he is Eevee.
His hand and his brain combine into one, and he is Eevee. I like that. This payload is moving forward, though. Ares has the headhunter from a good vantage point. They are so far back here. Oh, that's a perfect overpower. Good job there by G-Bunny. Ares is the perfect person to eliminate from this fight, especially when the range is just a little bit longer here, and Payan dancing around just up there with the Eevee as well. Freeze God's still alive, but all Space Station, they're pushed too far back. This payload goes in, and as convincing as Space Station were to start this game, the Knights were just as convincing to answer back.
It's really rare that we get a round 3 this fast, right? Like normally a capture and a push, it takes a little while. There's a long fight on the capture, there's a long fight on the push, and it comes through in overtime. This was just boom, boom.
It's like both teams are getting steamrolled.
2-2's, you know, the interesting scoreline. Any team can win based on this capture if they can get the push, based on both of these teams' performance so far. We know they can push
we know
on
they
the
can.
map.
We know they can.
The biggest thing I think that's going to play the role here is actually going to be Payan. He was a big role last time, but it's not necessarily just because he got kills. It's because of Midnight. And that's actually the biggest thing. Not only having Midnight, well, actually in this case, not having Midnight, but having Scout on your side means that you can lock Space Station down. Ares can't see, Freeze can't see, Sadat can't see, Retaliate. Like, they lose their vision permanently.
Right.
And so if you have that, that plays a big role. But losing it early on might actually hurt them a little here. Having it only at 42% is definitely a detriment.
And Cuss Cutie's really come alive in this one, having as much of an impact as the Genos could possibly have. Good through times and spaces. The one he throws out just now goes a little wide. Freeze God now going toe-to-toe with Payan on the opposite side. Neither kill coming through. As I say it, Payan finds the daggers. Freeze God back to base. 51% though for Space Station as the kills start to come up blue. Dethroner stays alive. Sadak has just a little bit of shielding before he goes down. Ares is still around, free firing from the back line here, but definitely nowhere near close enough to have really any impact on who's standing on the point here. So another well-fought mid-fight there from the Knights.
The thing that went wrong for Knights in the first round, they've done right both times afterward, round 2 and 3, and that is they put pressure on Ares to force him out, and they kill Freeze God. They've been able to kind of bait Freeze God down from just protecting Ares, and because he's going into these fights and admittedly not keeping track of the Maeve as well as he should, he's losing the engagements, but now she's gone.
Payan blinks just way too far in, or dashes, I should say, way too far in on that one. Sadak and Freeze God opening things up. Cuss Cutie trying to dance around this corner here. The engagement's still happening on the opposite side, but Space Station are the ones fighting on this point here with 75%. Now respawning back out of the base. Payan is back up and riding that horse right down to the middle here. Cuss Cutie, he has to get in there, and he has to be the one to try to get the overtime started, but he does, but at the cost of his life, and now there's no healing for the ensuing Pittsburgh Knights retake attempt. Overtime just being held off right now by Payan. G-Bunny and Sadak going toe-to-toe here. If G-Bunny goes down, this is going to be it, and that's exactly what happens. 3-2 for Space Station. They're pushing for the win.
Now the thing is whether or not they can get this push through. I think both teams at this point have showcased, yes, it's possible, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as easy this time around as it was the first time, especially if that had connected. Tough. Unfortunately for Cuss, Ares is going to be able to just take a couple steps to the left. He does drop down, but goes right back up, and these are the kills that matter. You get rid of the Throner. If you can kill off G-Bunny, even if you lose Ares, I think you open up enough space that this payload can keep running around.
Sadak on the barrack with a double so far in this fight, but Pittsburgh are answering back so well right now. Space Station are going to have to give this one another go. Ricotta rolls in, trades out, but the fight is really taking place just at the payload here, so Space Station don't have too much ground to gain. Finally starting to move forward despite a bit of a back and forth fight here. Space Station have 4 ultimates, everything except the Headhunter to get this one pushed in. The Overpower is up. Scout will be soon as well. The Assert Dominance ready to go for the Knights. And they may need to throw some of that at the wall here. I mean, if this goes in, it's game over. Ooh, good.
Wow.
Good. Dread Serpent there from Midtown. Gets Dethroner running the opposite direction. The Shoulder Bash was going to come through, but the Dread Serpent comes out right on time. Well played there from Midtown. Sadak, though, he finds another one for Space Station. Cuss Cutie always finding seemingly 1 or 2 kills in all of these fights. Last hitting doing very well. Ricotta's up on the high ground, finding some damage. Oh, but he's going to call him on his bluff. but he has to drop down and get a little bit of damage going toe-to-toe with Sadak now as Rakata, who wins this one, but now he has a little bit of help. He has to tumble out of it.
Gang.
Using the mobility seemingly almost of an Eevee or of a Maeve here is Rakata, using min-maxing those tumbles to perfect effect.
Being able to roll down, use the teleporter up, and like that's the thing is Sadak's not looking for that. He's looking for where is he running to? Where is he trying to hide behind? What does he want to do? And he was just constantly coming up. If you don't have that mobility from Rakata coming down, like just his like wherewithal, his presence of mind to make those decisions.
Right.
That 3-man push that comes down to collapse on that Cassie absolutely gets rid of her. And they use a few ults trying to get that. Not only the Dread Serpent, but like the Dome Shield was used a little earlier.
Yeah,
so it's the Seismic Crash. But that's the kill. The biggest one that they keep getting is just get rid of the Throner, make it a 4v5, get rid of G-Bunny. Even if you lose something in the process, keep up the pressure. Find yourself 3.
He is taking it over, the Eevee. He wants to be done with this one. Cuss Cutie, the last member alive as D-Throner responds. Overtime begins. The healer's in behind. If they become privy to this, Cuss Cutie's going to fall, and that's exactly what happens. He was just caught out behind. Not by his own fault. That's just where the fight ended the last time around. Midnight is ready. Kills all for Red right now, though. They have no healing. Payan's able to trade out with FRZ regardless. Seismic Crash is going to lock up G-Bunny right now. Rakata's trying to tumble out, but are the shots good enough? He's going to call him on his bluff. In he goes. G-Bunny goes down, and Space Station go up 3-0.
And now this is the point where I think maybe there is no return overall for the Knights. That was, again, I'm looking at maps that they should be winning, or at least should be able to make SSG uncomfortable on, and SSG, again, force them to play their game, which I think is the biggest thing. Very impressive overall. I'd actually say more from SSG than anything to be able to kind of hold up the way they have.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking at where the Knights can go. Like, my future eyes are not on how this game ends, because a lot of it was control. It's more towards, do we see a Jack Falls, since that's been pretty much the Knights, like, I'd say unarguable best map.
Well, it could be. They keep losing, which means they're going to keep being in control of the map picks. It's do or die time now for the Knights. Game 3 goes the way of Space Station. Desk, how you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. Nice day out, actually. Kind of comfortable. Had a good breakfast. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great as well.
How about the set?
We're getting some rain outside. You know, it's been kind of a drought here.
It's been way too hot. Way too hot.
Definitely.
Space Station, way too hot. Raining on top of the Knights here. Fantastic set so far. And this, the scariest game so far. Do you agree?
Easy for Barrick. 91K, baby. Let's
Dummy
go.
damage.
I know.
Here's the scary part, though. Game number 1 and 2, I applauded. I gave Space Station tons of credit for being real big brain and understanding their game, right? Game number 3, Knights go back to the drawing board, and they do something really intelligent. They play a map, they play some picks, and they make Space Station get off of their own game. The problem is, SSG still won like this.
Little Crab Rave Ice Storm going on. And this was funny because it almost feels like this time it was Ares and FRC God making space for the front line. It was like the Eevee and this Kinessa are able to really have all the uptime in this fight, blinking around, finding long line-of-sight shots. That's what I truly feel enables this 16-4 performance on Barrick, right? If he's just getting battered and bruised from all directions, from, you know, roofs above him, multiple angles, then there's absolutely no way Sadak could do anything about that. So it was kind of cool to see, and it's one of the unique things about Timbermill. Like I said, it really just is the polar opposite in so many ways than every other map in the pool.
Yeah, you had mentioned that, and that made me very curious to see how Space Station would actually execute on this one. And like I said, Knights did everything in their power in that first half. You kind of cut the game in half, right? Picks, and then the actual shooting part of the game. I think Knights did everything well. They really nailed the classwork side. But when it came time to lab, SSG just took it to the bank.
And that's a big thing that we had to ask of Ares as well. We've been kind of calling him a role player today, playing a lot of Tyra, things like that. I think he did step up, and after that first fight, there was actually a moment that the casters pointed out. I think he was like 6k damage in the lead after the first team fight, so big moments for Ares, and he has to have those type of performances, right? When you construct this draft, especially on Frog Isles, Timber Mills around these snipers, and having a win condition means when you get one and the other team doesn't, that is the moment where the pressure is on you and you have to perform, because everybody's kind of looking at, this is what we first picked, this is what we banned for, this is what we set up to do. It's kind of on you now, homie.
Exactly, and that's why I'm still sitting here like almost appalled. I did not expect. I thought this would be the one the Knights would take, because honestly, everything was just lined up in their favor.
That draft on another map, I think 80% chance they do take it. I think that was a really good draft for any other map. We talked a lot about how, you know, the sniper and the Eevee is going to be very important because of those long lines of sights. And I would have rather had this in Nara Barrack. I want both point frontliners. I want that Maldamba. I want high sustain. I want rocks on my objective where they can just capture away for free. And even if the fight isn't going our way, it's still better to have a tankier frontliner down there who can stay on the objective just a little bit longer than maybe an Ashe or a Khan could.
On our way to Stone Keep, could be our final map if Pittsburgh Knights don't stand up here. Timber Mill, Ascension Peak, and Frog Isle have all gone the way of Space Station Gaming. Very one-sidedly, almost.
Yeah.
We've seen Pittsburgh Knights kind of stand up a little bit. I think their best performance was in that second game, believe it or not.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, and I think that style of composition is where their heart is leaning today. I think they tried to pick it again, but Timber Mill was just not the place for it. And I want to see them full commit. If we could get the aggression from game 1 with the comps of games 2 and 3 to just meet somewhere in the middle, I think the Knights might be in a little bit of a better spot. The Atlas bans, again, we talked about how game 2 was the closest they came, but Atlas's control and the unique ability for that kit to really just shut down aggression is very difficult to deal with, and no other character can do it like him. And so starting to see that character banned, I think, is a big step in the right direction.
Ashe and Eevee, the two most powerful characters in this specific matchup, in my opinion. Space Station versus Knights. These characters are so important. Eevee, Freeze God, is going to be the guy on this one, and Ashe, you're looking at the Throner to do this one. So for SSG to grab both, not only is it kind of standard, but it's going to be good in their direction. Knights, though, play with the big boys. Khan, Bomb King, and Grover.
And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, there's really no reason to need Bomb King that early. Eevee is Freeze God. That's his pick. He's not going to be playing Bomb King. There's no threat of SSG taking that. Knights,
welcome to the
I think they really kind of maybe took this early to keep themselves open and see, all right, what are they going to pick? We need to see as much of their draft as possible before we counterpick it.
Well, I love the speed. I think these players really understand. Like, they know when you see players pick this quickly, they know what they want to play. These comps are set in stone, quite literally. There's Inara. And this looks good. Space Station on match point. Ashe, Eevee, I think they're lined up to take it. We'll see if that's what they can do. Knights versus Space Station Gaming. All up to them.
Well, Knights need to answer, and they need to answer right now, because the phone's been ringing for 3 games. In game 4, they're going to hang up that phone. Very similar draft to last time. Some pros and cons. Still 10 pros, still 1 con. I'm going to rehash that. How have we not thought of that up until today?
That's a good question.
That's
actually, you know, that one's also in the vein, you know, we've been having an issue in my eyes of, like, there's a defense where it's a full court press, where they're like, one team is pushing a payload, but they're locked in their base.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, how do you describe that in one phrase? And finally, I just decided to call it a full press defense. Because it just feels like it encapsulates everything I need. 3 words.
No, that's good.
But I thought of it in the shower this morning. I needed it 4 weeks ago.
Well, you could use it today. Maybe you'll see it today. Maybe it'll be the perfect time.
If I get lucky.
If you get lucky. G-Bunny's gone on a bit of a roundabout route here. Dancing right behind the con shield is so perfect there, but it unfortunately walks forward into the bullets of Ares here. So it's a 3-kill sweep for Space Station. Pittsburgh Knights held on for the early part of that one. Cuskuti's going to be the latest to go. Ricotta trying to dash in, maybe mitigate a little time, and that's all he's able to do is Space Station take the clean sweep. 75% and climbing now for point number 1 here on Stone Keep, and the kills keep on rolling through here. They might capture this payload and get it moved a good bit forward if this keeps going this way.
I mean, G-Bunny is just locked around the corner, and we've kind of mentioned this in the past where it's, if you keep G-Bunny locked down, you can kind of keep the Knights locked down. This is probably the best example of that, where it's just G-Bunny, like, I think anybody on the Knights really isn't able to get past a certain point, and that is where SSG have pushed the line of scrimmage. This is where they're fighting. This is where they want to be. And because of that, you don't have anyone who can break through. You can just find a kill or a pick or a displacement to deal with something. If you can kill off for Chow here, maybe you start opening the door. But it's still G-Money.
Oh, nearly escaping that one is Aries, but Ricotta has to trade out his light for that one. Sadak now has the ability to get aggressive here. Assert Dominance is ready. Spacestation Gaming, they want to go, and they want to go now. There goes Mid-Tau. I was going to say the Dread Serpent almost came out, but I think he was cleaned up just before he was able to get it off. Paying 1-for-1 trade. Getting tied up. This is good play here from Dethroner because the fight was rolling so far forward there from Space Station. Dethroner being able to hold it in place. So important. Down as the Assert Dominance blocked off there by the Dethroner shield. Just dancing around for a little bit of extra damage mitigation there. They're able to do so. So Pittsburgh Knights, it looks like they've been able to stabilize, but Ultimates keep getting thrown at the wall here. Ricotta's going to be the recipient of a seismic crash. He's headed back to base.
Now they have the high ground control and they're doing what they need. There's going to be a Dread Serpent to be able to displace a little bit, and they get the healer, which is what you want. Now you can start pressing a little bit forward. Pan's going to be able to reply a little bit, but that's the big thing. The Bomb King has been making the strides. No one else on the team has really stood out.
If Pan didn't come up huge in that fight, that one was going to be rolling through. You could hear me calling it, and Pan comes up big right when they need him to. He had a great game on Ascension Peak. Pittsburgh Knights falling just short, and that's not even an overtime fight. Still 45 seconds left. Still 45 seconds left in this case. Only one ultimate on the board. It is the Midnight. But that was a good defensive stand there from the Knights because that was looking like the edge of a 2-0 for Space Station.
Yeah, and honestly, there's still enough time that
it could be.
Still be a 2-0,
well
and that's like where I'm looking at it. Pan has been probably the biggest threat. I love the way SSG are prioritizing the tanks because they're getting rid of Dethroner, they're getting rid of G-Bunny almost regularly, but because they're focused on burning them down and they take longer, it's just harder to burn through a tank's health bar. Pan's just like, cool, I'm going to stand about 10 steps back and I'm just going to throw some bombs until someone dies in front of me.
And he's had a good setup to this point. I mean, Ascension Peak was huge for him. 9-2 after point fight number 1. They fell short there. They found a way to mitigate the Pan impact. And then this one is sort of the same, a little bit reversed because they're on defense this time around, but finds 3 kills in that defensive stand. Pan, time and time again, at least twice so far in this set, has been the guy who they've looked to really bounce back in a lot of these fights. He's answered that call, but they still have 40 seconds left here, Gore, to really hold this line.
And that's going to be the thing. 40 seconds, especially on
That is a lot of time.
You have so much time to be able to get back to the payload. Like, they could sit here for 30 seconds and just take, like, the last 2 seconds to step forward onto the payload and be perfectly fine. Of course, they're going to be looking for kills. And kills are found, but not by SSG.
Not by SSG. Not even 1. 2 for Ricotta, 1 for G-Bunny, 1 for Pan. Who's going to get number 5? That's the big question of the hour. They're just going to stagger it out, actually. Very smart. They're going to make us wait. Actually pulling away, getting a little bit low there is Pan, but never really in any real danger. Ricotta's going to be the 3-kill man in this one, and he was 0-3-3 up to that point, so that's an important fight for the Mave. Space Station are able to respawn, regroup, get their way back in here. Nice axe there from Cuss Cutie. Look at how far away that was. That was a beautiful axe throw from Cuss. Getting FRZ God in the fray on that one. G-Bunny, though, he falls in return. Looks like, though, at the moment, Gore, the Knights have been able to draw their line and really hold it.
And it's a perpetual stagger right now. There's 3 members, now 4 joining the fight, but you just took 2 axes to the face of your freeze god. You're trying whatever you can. You get just in range for the overtime, but you don't have any tanks. Like, that's the biggest thing they had, was not only forcing the overtime, but with Sadak staggered the way it was, it's like, cool, now we can focus for Chow. Sadak's back. Cool, now we can focus Sadak. It's like they never had to focus on anyone that wasn't the immediate threat. They just had to look at, you're the one keeping us in overtime, we're going to kill you.
You know what, I feel like I keep saying this. It's like that was an important round for the Knights to win because Space Station were looking so aggressive and so fast-paced. Like, that could have been 2-0, so it's important that the Knights were able to stop that, you know, something of that matter. And they haven't been able to really capitalize on it, except for, you know, maybe a point or 2.
Yeah.
They find point number 1 on Stone Keep. 5 rezills already for Space Station. It's going to be good for a lot. King Bomb, Overpower, Midnight, of course. A few of the mitigations they'll find with Resilience coming through.
Now
we're going to get to see it flex its muscles right now. Not really in a position to capitalize on that. A bit of a defensive ice storm there from Space Station Gaming is going to cover their escape right now. The early kill going over to Sadak here. In comes the King Bomb from Pan. Is he able to trade out? No, he doesn't. He rolls right on through, unfortunately, into the waiting arms of Aries, who has a double now in this fight. It's all down to Cuss Cutie, but he's going to vine his way out. Not very far, though, because Sadak hunts him down, and Space Station, they're back on the point.
And now they're going to be locked away, and I mean
Wait,
everything that was coming through. Yeah, no, the music you're hearing, that is the King Bomb, as he's been keeping it rolling. So
I feel like I'm in an elevator.
Forward. They've smoothed out what has been a rough fight for the Knights. I mean, they tried to do whatever they could with that Midnight to push forward. And,
Space Station
it didn't work.
Bringing you the silky smooth sounds of a 3-0 here on Stone Keep. That's going to be the Dread Serpent rolling right on through. And FRZ, he capitalizes in the form of 1 kill.
I wanted to carry it on, but the push
I couldn't.
keeps going back and forth. It's 99-9 here, so the Knights come back in and fight. And this Bomb King is just decimating people once again. Rakata actually much bigger in that fight, I think, than anything.
I'm digging it.
But it's
I am digging it.
It's exactly what the Knights needed to come back. Unfortunately, they have no form of comeback mechanic whatsoever. So SSG should still be able to come in and cause a little trouble.
I can't. Oh, this is unreal. I love it. I do love it. It's like the perfect back tone to it. There's all this carnage and aggression going on, and then the smooth sounds of saxophone serenading you in here. Space Station Gaming, there's kill number 1. Finally cutting off there. Unfortunately, actually, I was really enjoying that one. FRZ on the Eevee finds 2. Rashad 1, Ares 1. That's the second fastest team fight we've seen out of Space Station today. And that's to the silky smooth sounds of point number 2.
And it was that they ended the song and the Knights about as fast as they could, at least when they could get into it there. I mean, they came back and it was just click, click, boom, everything's done, dusted. They move forward, but this is actually, I want to say, a little more chance for the Knights to be able to showcase something, like whether or not they can find a good defense. A nice little Poppy Bomb gets you out of the stun. But they're going, I mean, with an assert dominance there, your entire goal is pressure. Your entire goal is pushing back the Knights as far as you can to make sure this payload gets ground.
Well, that's what he sought out, and that's exactly what Sadak finds. 2 kills on the board for Space Station as they're rolling forward. The Knights are trapped up in their base. Cuss Cutie, Pan, they can't take a step out here. G-Bunny with the respawn on the Khan this time around. Of course, Khan in this game with the rest of the pros. I'm really going to harp on that one until it's dead. Pittsburgh Knights up top. That's a good Dread Serpent. Doesn't find any fears. Actually does. Finds a couple. As this payload inching ever closer, those precious seconds could mean a lot. Only chunk damage right now from both teams. Nobody going down just as of yet, but Freeze God opens up the killing here. Lots of low-health targets for him to chase down. They might not need it if this payload gets too much further forward. Now the healing is gone as well for the Knights. I think this one's going in, Gore. I think Space Station are going up 3-1. That's what's going to happen. 1 point away from the 4-0 start to their day.
And a lot of that strength was the first thing they did when they were able to breach that arch. They locked Pan into the base. They were just like, cool, Bomb King, get out of the fight. You are going to be engaged over here. And he's having to kind of peek out back and forth. He's at that point in his health where just a couple of hits was all it would take to really dissolve what he had going for him. And so he had to stay teetering on the pretty much the edge of life and death, as both him and Rakata are 6 and 7. Both of them have been having their moments. Obviously, Pan's been having the most consistent damage overall on the side of the Knights, but that's the thing. You have one person who's consistently doing damage, whereas every single person on SSG, save for Metal, because what do you expect from them all, Damba, is going to be your numbers 2 through 5 on the damage charts. A lot of them in the 60,000 range as well, and that, I think, is what is more concise and more telling of this game right now.
They've just not had an answer up to this point. The entire game, they've not had an answer. A little bit of Deft Hands actually coming out for Metal right now, getting a little extra reload, maybe a few extra stunts coming in here from them. I feel like every single one of these fights as well, I say Freeze God opens up the killing. Freeze God finds the first one every single time, and he does the exact same here. Only 1 kill gets traded back now, but there's so many grouped up members of the Knights here up in this keep, and the assert dominance onto Pan. I can't imagine the Bomb King's going to be alive for much longer. His silky smooth jazz heads back to base with him. 66% for Space Station.
And now they're trying to just find their way back into this. They have a Midnight, and they're going to be able to pop that, but as you mentioned in the last round, and even more so for this round, Resilience is going to pay dividends against that. Not only dealing with the blindness, but letting you fight back as hard as you can. A Crossfire comes out, and you're melting front line.
Hey, guess who opened up the killing there, Gore? Freeze God. Oh, here it is. Wait, shh. I'm just going to let it happen. This one's over, but I'm going to let it happen.
99%.
99 becomes 100. Space Station Gaming, 4-0. Oh, no. We had to go out of it. I love that. That is the best Bomb King music I've ever heard.
Unfortunately, it was along with one of the most just scrambled Bomb King ults. Like, that was a King Bomb that is we're about to lose and I have to ult. Oh, you can't lose the game and have my ult up, and they go through. That was one I think everyone kind of expected SSG to come out on top on, but the fact that they did it as dominant as they did, as concisely as they did, several maps in a row, I think was the strongest thing for them.
Well, that's a perfect way to start the day. You come off a 2-game set yesterday. I mean, we keep saying, Space Station, 2 games in a set. These guys are professionals. They play Paladins for hours on end anyway just to practice. But being able to play 2 games yesterday, wake up early, come in here again today and win your first game of the day 4-0 as fast as it was, that bodes well for Space Station.
I mean, it's 16 maps, 17 maps now.
Yeah.
16 overall because they played 7,
That's right.
5, 4. It's going to be your 16 maps overall for them. And they're looking to try and end it around 20.
Yeah.
They want another 4-0 later.
They want.
The question is whether or not they can kind of keep that heat going.
It's going to be exciting to see. They'll take a little break. We'll take a little break. But first, send it to the desk.
I'm not taking a break. I'm still here. So is Nick. And
Yes, sir.
Space Station Gaming are here, and they don't look like they're going nowhere but up. Fantastic 4-0 coming out here from Space Station Gaming. Pittsburgh Knights had some flashes. I'm looking at Game 3, where I think they were most tactical. But at the end of the day, Space Station just stood up a lot on their own 2 legs here.
I mean, you look at the scoreboard, it's the exact story that you would want. Ares freeze, Sadak controlling, doing big damage. Rochelle, 12-4 on the NR. You never hate to see that. But at Midtown, Rochelle are just constants on the objective. So much resilience in this game, too. 9 players picking that up.
Also, very, very, the target acquisition, the target prioritization was paramount here for Space Station Gaming. Frankly, I think that's how they won the set. Freeze got able to do what he's able to do, and we've been kind of nodding to the fact that your front line enables your back line to be this successful. But also, you got to look at the other side of the coin. Space Station Gaming identified G-Bunny every single round of every single game. And with him down, he couldn't do what he normally tries to do for Pittsburgh Knights, and Space Station were able to fly as high as they wanted to.
FRZ also got EV 3 out of 4 games.
Yes.
And I feel like there's some type of correlation there. There might be. Correlation doesn't always equal causation, but in this instance, I feel like we might be onto something.
Eevee flies, so does Space Station. They're going up, baby. Previously 4-4 just yesterday. Now today, 7-4 in 3rd place. That's absurd. They were down there with Kanga yesterday, as I said. Literally 24 hours ago, Space Station Gaming was 4-4 in about 6th place. Now, 7-4 as we find them in their makeup games, and makeup is exactly what they're doing. They're making up for lost time, and they're bringing home the dubs.
That's right, and they do have that game against Virtus Pro today. The standings ebb and flow kind of a lot, so depending on how that goes, they'll either stay where they're at or they will fall, actually, I believe below Team Envy based on what I was seeing. If they lose, the map differential is going to put Team Envy a little bit above them, so lots to play for today. SSG, all of these games are mattering.
It's a really, really big deal for these guys coming in week number 4, so a little bit behind the pack. As I said, some makeup games, but usually it's the people that have their back against the wall that need to find these games that are a little bit more strugglesome, that have a trouble. Not the case here. Space Station is just like, let's go, bring it to us, come on.
One thing that I definitely am thinking about with SSG is that you have this actionable period of time where they're required to play 80% of their games.
Sure.
And the meta was so up and down all over the place in the first, conveniently, 4 or 5 weeks when they weren't here. So they kind of get here and things start to even out. They had those 2 new characters, Atlas and Amani came in. They had to sort of deal with that. But at this point, they're playing the bulk of their games in a relatively stable period, which I think has been a boon for them.
It really is, because from what I've watched, Space Station Gaming has had trouble adapting to some of the newer metas and some of the newer things going on. But when they're able to kind of buckle down, they figure it out. And like I said, today, I think watching today and yesterday, they've identified their own game. And that's really more important. They understand exactly what they need to win, and that's how they're finding the victories. You can hear me talk about them, or you can hear them talk about them. Standing by, it's Sadak and friends with the post-game interview.
All right, guys, back here for the 3rd time in 2 days, so congrats on that, first of all. Sadak, I kind of want to pick your brain first. Dealing with G-Bunny seems to be a big thing in being able to beat the Knights. What did you see sort of in that matchup today, you versus G-Bunny?
I was struggling a lot at first, but then I get used to how he plays, so it was better.
And that was a big part of the win today. And then Ares on the opposite side, getting back to the Tyra more today. What do you see in her, and what allows you to play so aggressively on that champion?
I used to play a lot of Tyra, and my team just loved it, and just pick Tyra. And come on, guys, I don't do anything. They say like, just mark. That's the only thing that you can do, that you need to do. Like, so,
I think that was true yesterday, but today it felt like you were having some top damage performances, right? Like you were really in the mix with this character. And do you feel that this is the most like shallow the hit scan pool has ever been? Like with Leon out there's no real Andro, and it feels like you're really leaning on Tyra and Vivian. I didn't think I would ever say that.
Yeah, I think like, I don't know, because I used to play a lot of Cassie and Leon is kind of meh right now, and yeah, Tyra is really good for our playstyles, so I like Vivian as well. So, yeah, it's a lot of damage.
Yeah. Last question. Talk to me a little bit about Timber Mill. Did you guys feel that draft went heavily in your favor, or were you scared at all what the Knights had?
I wanted to play Ruckus, but my team didn't.
After that tournament,
want
I don't
to.
know if they're letting you make those types of calls, but
They say we trust you on Terminus yesterday. Today it's hard, man. Yeah, it's struggled. Sorry.
Well, guys, congratulations. That's a great win. You've got one more left in front of you, but before we get there, we got to throw to a quick break.
Thank you.
Paladins Premiere brought to you by Evil Mojo, Hi-Res Studios, INAP, Respawn, SteelSeries, Alienware, and Skillshot.